Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Samslo33 here, and today on this episode of Mix Up, we're going to be tackling the last new black and white on deck that's the last new one that's not like a old one or a variation on an old one. This is straight up new one, and that is Ninetales Amoongus. Of course, Ninetales and Amoongus seem like the dream team. One helps the other. They're both good with the evolution spray, special conditions. It just seems like a really obvious combo. And yeah, as you can see, I'm having a little more fun on Play TCG. I've been playing that quite a lot, and it's really awesome, really fun playing that again. And if you see, let me just get out of the way. I can show you my avatar. I'm not sure if that shows up or not, because all opponents I've faced are in black silhouette, and you can't customize your avatar yet. If you see this guy, whose name is Samslo33, you know it's me. And please say hi, because it makes me know that someone's out there. Someone. Yeah, the avatar is pretty fierce. And I'll probably either be playing a Darkrai deck or a Selgor Venusaur. Both of them are very fun. And speaking of Darkrai, I just pulled my third one. Yay! On the online game, of course. So yeah, Ninetales Amoongus. Let's check that out right now. So obviously to talk about the deck in question, Ninetales Amoongus, we gotta look at Ninetales first, since it's the main attacker. It's a new rare holo from Dragon Exalted, stage 1 with 90 HP, which is average, slightly below average for a stage 1 nowadays. Has a water weakness, 1 retreat cost, and an ability and a attack. Its ability, Bright Look, says when you evolve previous evolution into Ninetales, you can basically bring up one of your opponent's bench Pokemon into the active Pokemon. So it's a free Pokemon catcher in an ability, very similar to Luxray GLLX from the yesteryear, which was incredibly popular back then, but that's because we didn't have Pokemon catcher at the time. So obviously, now that we do, it's not as overwhelming as ability. It's not like the amazing every deck thing that Luxray was, but it's still, of course, a very great ability. Of course, you can use it under item lock, which is a very great thing to have in the deck. But, of course, we gotta look at its attack as well. Hex Flame, for 1 fire energy, this does 20 damage for each special condition on the defending Pokemon. Now, of course, the best Pokemon to do special conditions is Amoongus, which is a very special condition heavy ability that says when you evolve it into Amoongus, your opponent is now confused and poisoned, which of course that adds 100 damage, which is very powerful to Ninetales' attack. Now, the maximum special conditions your opponent can have is 3. Burn, Poison, and one of the other 3 is Sleep, Confuse, or Paralyze. Of course, one more special condition would be good to max out Ninetales' damage, and I think they have the answer. Vulpix, which is of course Ninetales' pre-evolution, does burn for 1 single fire energy. Which of course, if you use that turn 1 and don't decide to use Bright Look or your opponent doesn't retreat, and that's a turn 2, 170 damage plus any damage from burn they already taken and poison damage and such. As long as you can get the Amoongus out, of course. Now, since we're on the topic of pre-evolutions, the Amoongus you should pick is almost definitely the one from Next Destinies. It has an attack for 1 Carlos energy that lets you flip a coin, and if heads, search your deck for any 1 Pokemon, so basically a built-in Pokeball. Kind of ironic since he's standing in front of a pile of Pokeballs. But as I've learned from the past, it's not always a clear-cut, this has to be a pre-evolution. And the other ones are Next Destinies, which uses only Grass energy, so that's pretty pointless. And the other one from Dragon Exalted does use colorless energy, and you flip 2 coins, and each head does 10 damage. So if you want something to do damage, like for example, if you're attacking a Garchomp or its pre-evolutions, use the attack of that and then retreat to Ninetales, and then you'll be able to knock it out in 1 hit with Ninetales. But that's pretty situational, so just for consistency, then Next Destiny's one and wins out, obviously. As I said earlier, with Burn, it does 170 damage plus Poison, and Poison automatically happens. And then there's also possible burn damage. That's 180 damage enough to knock out EXs, and since none of them have resistance, it's great. And there is, of course, EVLite, but a burn does kick in a couple times, and it could help in that. And without the burn, it does 130 damage with Poison, which knocks out Zekrom and Terrakion, and there's plenty of other basics with 130 HP that also does great against. So now I guess we should look at how the deck works, or what the list would look like, at least in action. So here's the list right here. I have 4-3 Ninetales and 4 of Amoongus, just because you want as many Amoongus out as possible, be able to stream special conditions as much as possible. If you only run 3 of Amoongus, and it'd be difficult to get them out, and your opponent will probably be killing those mostly, so you probably won't need as many Ninetales, but fourth one could be nice. Amoongus, since you need a lot of Amoongus out as quick as possible, that's to help fill your bench. Devolution Spray, of course, would be a necessity to run 4 of this card, because both Amoongus and Ninetales have evolving abilities, or abilities that happen when they evolve, so you just evolve them, then immediately Devolution Spray, and the next turn you continue using that power again. Of course, you really couldn't run the deck without it. Super Scoop Up is basically for the same reason, since you can only run 4, and you have to use that a lot, then you'll need them a lot of the time. So, yeah. Of course, there's always the flip, which is really annoying, but there really isn't any better option right now. Too bad Seeker's still in the format. I do run 2 Catcher, even though you do have Ninetales to do that. It's not always the case that you have a Ninetales to use Bright Look. But if you run like 3 or something, that might not be great, because also you don't want to be capturing something and then removing special conditions that are already on it. So that could also be a problem with using Catcher, but still, running it would still basically be required. There's no way you could possibly run the deck without at least 1. Well, maybe there is. No deck would be that great in this format without at least 1 or 2 Catcher. Preferably 4, but this one should work fine too. Level Ball, of course, searches out everything in the deck, so that's required 4. Plus Power, if you use this, in combination with an Amoongus that gets Garchomp and Napoleon in 1-hit KO range. The reason I run so many in this skeleton list is because those matchups you'll be using them quite a lot. And for the supporters, we have 4 Juniper, 4 Charon, 3 N and 2 random receiver. I'm not running that many N because you don't want to be shuffling your hand and getting such a little hand from your N, and then getting not many items that you need because you need so many Devolution Sprays and Super Scoop Ups and Plus Power and whatever. So I don't recommend running too many N, but it might just be worth testing and see how many would be good with the deck or how much it interferes with the deck. So there's the list for you. I don't know how great it is. I don't plan on using the deck, so I'm not going to test it. I haven't tested it much. But, of course, it's just a skeleton list. It should be fine just for testing, just for starting out. Maybe deck out some things like Plus Power, but still, of course, it's a pretty simple list, except for the Plus Power. Now let's talk about some text for the deck. There really aren't that many texts you can put into the deck. There is Sableye you can use with Blend Energy. Of course, Fire and Dark and Grass are in the same Blend Energy. And you can get back Devolution Sprays and Super Scoop Up, which you need, of course, to fuel the deck. So, of course, you need to use so many items, and sometimes you just don't have them, and Sableye could be the way to get them back. Roserade is a pretty obvious one once you think about it, just because it also uses a evolving ability, so you can use Devolution Sprays on that. And you can also get unsearchable items that you might need, like the Plus Powers or Tool Scrappers or more Devolution Sprays, but that seems kind of redundant. So Roserade is a pretty obvious partner, but not sure how well it works in the deck. Tool Scrapper, just because a lot of your problems stem from Eviolites and whatnot. Eviolite makes Trachean more of a pain, it makes EXs more of a pain. It also helps out in your Garbodor matchup a lot, which is a very awful matchup. So those are the texts, and now let's get on to the last segment other than closing, is the matchups, of course. So let's look at the matchups. Against Darkrai Hydreigon, this matchup is just horrendous. This is basically an auto loss. Darkrai makes it easy to retreat out of special conditions. And what's even worse is Darkrai's Night Spear damage to the bench makes it harder to de-evolve your Pokemon. Say this Night Spear twice to your Amoongus, you can't use Devolution Spray on that, because if you did, the Fungus would get knocked out, so you have to use Super Scoop Up, and then you'd be relying on flips. So, it's just a really awful matchup, but you can't KO Hydreigon in one hit, and they can retreat out of the burn really easy as long as they have an energy and a Darkrai, so it's just ugly matchup. Against the electric decks, this one's probably a little uneven. Ninetales isn't too great against most of the EXs. Registeel EX is of course weak to Ninetales, that one's not a problem. But it is a problem because it does the same thing as Darkrai, where it can spread damage and then you can't de-evolve your Pokemon unless you use Super Scoop Up. Since the weakness is there, they shouldn't even be playing the card down. With Raikou EX, they can retreat out of special conditions if you don't burn it at the very start. It won't be 2-hit KO'd and will probably either be retreated to not be KO'd for a while or max potioned and just your progress is ruined. Mewtwo is of course very difficult to counteract without your own Mewtwo. That one's pretty tough. And against Rayquaza, this is basically the same as Raikou. There's not really much of a difference. You still need 3 energy. It's basically the same thing. It's basically the same thing except they run more Sky Overreach, which is never good. Against the Electric with non-EXs, this might actually be when your matchup starts becoming better and possibly favorable, because Zekrom without Eviolite or after a Bolt Strike with Eviolite gets knocked out in one hit. Same as Terrakion, that works as well if they're still running that. And Bouffalant, without Eviolite, which gets one KO'd, or with Eviolite and plus power to add on to that. You can carry that. So all those Pokemon, the deck pretty much destroys easily compared to most of the other Pokemon. So, yeah, it's definitely not the best matchup, but if they're running EXs that aren't ready to steal, it's a pretty tough one. Against Garchomp, I'd say this is probably favorable just because you outspeed it a lot, and you can one-hit KO Garchomps with plus power. It just doesn't seem like Garchomp is quite fast enough to deal with it. Against straight Terrakion, if they don't run too many EXs, this is an incredibly good matchup because you one-hit KO it. Another added bonus is what actually knocks them out is the poison. So, because of that, first of all, EXP share won't work because EXP share only works when it's knocked out by an attack, which poison is not an attack. And it also prevents Retaliate from working. So after you knock out Terrakion, they're basically stranded to keep attaching energy over and over, and it's pretty awful. There's basically nothing they can do about that. That's a really awful matchup for them. But if they do run the EX, this becomes a little worse because they do have their built-in energy acceleration. It just makes the matchup a lot harder, and the Terrakion EX is a 2-hit KO. But they usually won't be able to retreat out of that special condition, so it's better than Eels. But with the EX Terrakion, it makes it a much harder matchup. Against Quad Entei, this one I'd say is pretty unfavorable just because, first of all, Entei can, if it goes first, it can use Fire Fang to take out your Funguses without burn because of its weakness. And then when it uses Grand Flame, it knocks out everything in your deck. It does have the same problems as Terrakion EX, where it probably won't be retreating out of the burn at the beginning. So you might be able to KO the first one, but then after that, your KOs will be slow and steady. They'll just be tearing through your Pokemon. But also another nice thing is that when they use Potion, it's basically useless. Just because the damage reduction is not nearly enough to make any bit of a difference. Against Strike Darkrai, this is another horrendous matchup just because, of course, the same problems as a Dragon, free retreat plus Night Spear damage, prevent you from evolving, blah blah blah. Against Empoleon, this one is probably a pretty bad matchup just because, first of all, Empoleon 1-hit KOs you every single time. I mean, it'd be incredibly rare for them not to because you're weak to water. And it also is a much more consistent deck. This deck you need to keep evolving, keep doing all these things, keep playing plus powers, and they just need to keep attacking, and once they get 6 attacks, they win, basically. So it's definitely a pretty ugly matchup. It's just a more consistent deck, it's a lot harder to beat, and there's nothing you can really stop it with. It's just a difficult deck to stop. Against Garbodor, if you don't run Tool Scrap for this matchup, it's pretty awful, because you run so many abilities, and you basically do no damage without the abilities, and you don't run that many Catcher to bring up the Garbodor, but you still are good against Terrakion if you can get a couple abilities in. But if you do run Tool Scrapper, which you probably should, this matchup becomes more favorable, and Terrakion is a very easy target for Ninetales. Makes it pretty useless. And Garbodor will probably not be doing anything if you can keep Scrappering it. Scrappering. Weird word. Against Celeborn decks, this matchup is very favorable just because, first of all, you can Bright Look to get out of the Magic from lock, and you can KO Gothitales and the Muse EXs that they send up easily. Just use your Devolution Sprays and Super Scoop at the right time, and make sure to play your Ninetales at the right time as well. Be able to get out of the lock at very vulnerable times for your opponent, and you should be fine. This is a very good matchup. So, in closing, this deck seems to have a lot of bad matchups against the higher tier decks. Most Eel decks and anything Darkrai are awful matchups. It's also got bad against Empoleon, which is a pretty nice deck. And Terrakion EX is not very great a matchup. It is good against Garchomp, though, which is a nice thing to have. But there's a lot of top tier decks it's not very good against. Personally, I don't like the deck. It seems to rely on too many abilities, and it's kind of clunky, and I don't know, there's a lot of counteracting things about the deck that I don't think work very well. So, and also relies on a lot of item cards that you need to keep using. But it's probably only going to win one Battle Road at most. I don't know, maybe a little more, but it's definitely not a top tier deck. It's probably one of the lowest tier decks there is right now. But it is getting a lot of hype for some reason. So I think the deck is worth mentioning just because a lot of people seem to like the deck. So that's Ninetales Amoongus for you. It's, not great. It's not even that good. But I don't know. It could be decent. It could win a lower division Battle Road at best. Maybe, It's not that great, but people are talking about it and might as well mention it in this video because, I don't know, people just need to know what to do, or they need to know what's
gonna come up at Battle Roads because I'm expecting people to play it. It just won't be good. And speaking of Battle Roads, did I say Battle Roads? Yes, I did. Tomorrow, Battle Roads start on Saturday. It should be when this video is coming out on Friday. So Saturday will be start Battle Roads, and I don't have Battle Roads on that weekend, so the first Battle Roads for me is going to be on the 8th, but then I'll probably be doing 2 Battle Roads every week. Like, twice every weekend. So, yeah. And from now on, not much to do for that week, so I guess I'm just going to play more PTCGO and watch some streams PTCGO because those are floating around everywhere. So, thanks for watching. Definitely check out PTCGO. It's completely awesome. If you want to have some codes, use them. Trust me, it's really fun. I've made some decks that are pretty bad in the past. It's still fun, just like a whole grass deck or whatever, just good grass Pokemon. It was still really fun. It's fun to go back to those times where you don't have supporters in your deck. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time for or I guess in the next video, I'm going to talk about all the older decks that were in the last format, such as Electric, Straight Darkrai, Acelgor, Terrakion, all those decks. It might be kind of a long video, but just to get all those decks out of the way, and I really want to talk about a couple of them. So, until next time, I'm going to be playing some PTCGO. Take that, basic yellow. Still just fighting basic yellow. Yep, just fighting basic yellow again. Isn't this fun? Oh, come on, basic yellow again. Is it really that hard to pull some eels? Why the heck am I still playing this? Could go edit the next video. Nah, let's just keep doing this.